Hello, everyone. Welcome to Deaf Mute Studio. This is the Memo by Deaf podcast, and I am joined again by Matt Owen. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Daniel.
Good to have you back on. And today we are talking about Chopper. And the reason we're talking about Chopper is because it's recently had a HD release. Now, for anyone who doesn't know Chopper, which I pity you, Chopper is a 2000 Australian film about Mark Chopper Reed, a legendary criminal who wrote his autobiography while serving a murder sentence in prison. His book, From the Inside, which the film is based. And yes, I was reading that off IMDb. So I've only ever seen Chopper from the DVD release, which is this one here, very old school, got it secondhand a couple of weeks ago. I did have it in my collection, but it got sold in the Great Purge of 2011. So, Matt, you watched the HD version very recently. What are your thoughts?
Quality wise, I'd probably not seen the film for 7 or 8 years or something like that. It's definitely an upgrade on, I think it's like a Prism. I think the company who produced it were like, it's called Prism or something like that. Should say on the spine of the DVD that you got there, but it's defo an upgrade on that. Metronome.
Or Metrodome.
Oh, Metrodome, okay. I mean, visually, it's a really well-directed film anyway. Cinematography is really nice. It's quite surreal and trippy and in parts, and it has massively benefited from having like a digital sort of restoration and like that HD release. I mean, even if it didn't have a digital release, like the strength of it is, ultimately the film anyway, sort of thing. It's good that they've been able to do that after 20 years, and kind of the good thing about it is it puts it on people's radars again. The one thing I was disappointed with, nothing to do with the release or anything like that in terms of the quality, but in the northwest of England, I couldn't find a cinema where it was on anywhere. Kind of pissed me off in a way, because it's probably one of the standout Australian films for me, if not the,
Yeah, I totally agree, mate, yeah.
But that was really disappointing. I think I just wanted to find a cinema as well, because then there'd be either a quad poster or another one, and then I could find a way of robbing it or, convincing them to give it to me, because it was going to be showing for one day. But yeah, that's the only disappointing element. But did you give it a rewatch this weekend? What did you think?
I did, yeah. It's like I'd only just realised as when I bought, I was like, fucking hell, I've not seen this film in well over 15 years. Like, first time I watched it was on DVD. I was like, oh yeah, that's amazing. And then it just went. Loads of films went before it, and I never really give it another thought. So watching it again, it was like, I think we watched it round about its release, although we didn't catch it. Well, I didn't catch it in the cinema. I certainly caught it on DVD, because that was one of the films that we all kind of levitated towards when we were growing up. It's like, oh, have you seen Chopper? It's like, no, you watch it, and it's like a word of mouth kind of film for us back then. But yeah, watching it, I was like, it's quite, the DVD quality isn't great, and I was kind of envious. Like, I wasn't watching the HD version, but on the other hand, I was in awe of just the storytelling, the style of it. It's and Andrew Dominic. Like, I think I've seen his later films more than I have Chopper, like the assassination of Jesse James. But going back and watching Chopper, it's like, oh, this is how it all started, and you can see his style straight from the get-go. It doesn't seem like he has progressed as a filmmaker, but you can certainly, it's like for a debut feature film, you can just see how much confidence he's got. And you alluded to it before, where there's these really oddball bits, like where the audio, where the video is sped up, but the audio stays the same. And it's like I say, it's quite trippy, but it's like I don't think I've seen a film that's really done that before. And to see that, like going back, I was just like, wow, this is stylistically, it's probably the most confident Australian film I've ever seen. In terms of
that's like a really fair sort of shout. I mean, I watched a few clips back online, and to be fair to Andrew Dominic, he doesn't strike, in the way like Tarantino's that person who's happy to like talk forever about films and stuff that he's done, and I get very much the feeling that Dominic's like the binary opposite. He's intense for that period where he's, designing the film and making it, and then he just moves on to the next thing. I mean, like, you look at it and he spent 7 years, in pre-production and then production making it. And you can tell he must have had it all mapped out, what he wanted specifically and stuff. And, you've got bits of time lapse in there, like on the titles and stuff, and the credits in the prison, and the cinematography, like that whole thing. When he's in prison, it's like that blue color, like maybe slightly green and stuff, and then when he gets out into the real world, you've got like all the really vibrant like oranges, reds, and greens and stuff, and it's a bit like I remember the first time I watched it, and I thought, I don't know, the read I got on it, I was like, fucking hell, it was it felt overly stylistic.
Yeah.
But like after a couple of viewings and kind of absorbing it a bit, you just kind of understand that like he's that paranoid, and we would have been probably would have been 16, 17 when we first watched that film. So like, I probably wouldn't have, a pair of us wouldn't have absorbed, what was going on and what was happening and stuff. And but yeah, I mean, the confidence that he's got is unbelievable. Like, I'd love to know, like, certain takes, how many things they did and what they did. I mean, I know for that cocaine scene when he's in Neville Bartos's house.
Neville Bloody Bartos.
Yeah, I mean, like that's overcranked, like shot in slow motion, and then sped up in post. But then the audio's recorded like normal speed, and then it's just synced up. And like, it's just little things like that. I mean, it's the old smoke and mirrors. We've said this before with films, and it's the nice little tricks that you can do in camera, and it's just its tone is so consistent. Like it was probably really easy to go, a little bit mad with that film, and I don't know why but a scene that stuck out in my head from Lockstock, when the girl's asleep on the couch and she stands up with the minigun. And
oh my God, yeah.
And like, that's got a lot of slow motion in, and visually it's kind of, it's quite gritty and stuff as well. It would have been dead tempting and dead easy. I'm sure Mark Brandon Reed was like absolutely off his head, and he'd go onto these tangents, and a lot of what he said was actually, other criminals' stories which he appropriated and made his own and stuff. So there is this like surreal element that he could have went down with it, but he doesn't. He kind of keeps it there. Those reenactment scenes, like when he shoots the Turk in the car park,
yeah,
and like you see it from, you've already seen what happens in real life or in the film, and then how he changes that to sort of create himself as kind of, again, he's the victim in the scenario. But yeah, you're right, like the confidence to do what he does with the cinematography. And I mean, the great thing about it is I also like read that they did 300 to 400 castings before they decided to go with Eric Bana. Even though Chopper, like you said, Eric Bana should be the one to play me, Dominic was like, nah, I'm not having it.
Yeah, because Chopper saw him, because he was a comedian, wasn't he, Eric Bana, before he became an actor, and he saw him on an Australian show called Full Frontal. Is it on my notes? I think it was called Full Frontal. Anyway, it was famous in Australia, which I was like, odd choice, because he wasn't even that big. He had to really beef up for the role as well. So for Chopper to spot that potential for himself in someone that looks not like him, it's absolutely crazy.
I mean, that's another great element, isn't it? That, you know, people talk about De Niro in Raging Bull and, you know, the transformation that he undertakes, but Banner playing the younger, you know, at the start of the film when he's in the prison, and then I think there was only a month between. He only took a month out between shooting the prison scenes and then the next part of the film, and he put all that weight on, growing the facial hair, and you know, it's. I'm not saying it's as, you know, a big as undertaking it is for De Niro, but you know, it's still good going for 1 month, you know, worth of character prep and stuff. But you know, it's dead interesting for me. And going back to what you were saying about, you know, how we'd have learned about that film then would have been a review in Empire about, you know, because we had this massive flux at the time of DVDs getting released. It was kind of, you know, that era where everything was first getting re-released on those discs, and each month there'd be reviews of, you know, what was coming out and that. And I think with the likes of, there was a handful of films for us which are like probably the equivalent to like Video Nasties were in the 80s. And for us, it was probably made up of like Chopper, Natural Born Killers, and then maybe something, trying to think what else, like...
Romper Stomper.
Romper Stomper, that's the perfect example. Another Aussie film as well. But they were kind of like on the radar because they were like controversial, and, you know, they might have had censorship problems or what have you and stuff. And so it was kind of going into it, you were expecting something which would have been akin to a Video Nasty, and that isn't what Chopper is at all. It's like, don't get me wrong, it's unapologetically violent, but you have to be to tell that story. And watching it back on Friday, I was kind of really struck by how brutal it is. Like, but also like the blocking of like certain scenes, like obviously probably the most horrendous. And there's murders and all kinds in it, but there's that scene where he goes after his missus after they've kind of had the arguments in the car, and the thing with like the levity of the film, like the pendulum swings from comedy to like extreme violence so often, and so you get like this. The impact of it is like quite dramatic, and like the blocking in that scene, like you don't see, but you feel like the impact of the blows. The blocking is such that you can see him through the bathroom doorway, and she's pinned to the wall, obviously getting it, and like all the other violence that you see in it, the shankings, the shootings, you're there basically as like a fly on the wall, almost like experiencing it.
Yeah, that scene reminds me very much of Reservoir Dogs, the ear scene, where the camera just kind of pulls away, and I thought that was great because, like you said, it's an extremely violent film, and particularly the prison scene at the beginning where he stabs Georgie, and most of all where he gets stabbed, and he's like, oh my god, that is gruesome. But to not to go full on nasty with it, like you don't need to see the violence against his girlfriend at the time. You only really need to kind of have it implied, although you see the action itself, but not flat out. It's not it doesn't do it in a gratuitous sense, which I think would be a misjustice. The not seeing it has, I think, carries more of an effect in that sense.
I mean, the other irony there, like you say in the ear scene, you know, Reservoir Dogs became like infamous for that, but you don't actually see it happen. In Chopper, you basically sat opposite him while the whole thing of don't hack at it, just slash it off, just get it off, and maybe it was because everybody already knew he'd had his ears cut off that it wasn't a reveal of a means of torture. It's like factually, well, it happened. We're going to show it. But that's the thing. Sometimes it's weird, isn't it? It's like if you can make if you effectively make a really strong scene which is violent to give like a stomach churning reaction, if you do it sometimes by not showing it, then you're penalised for it. I remember Shane Meadows when he spoke about This Is England, when Stephen Graham has that attack on Milky.
Oh yeah.
He did the same thing. He went away from it. He didn't like gratuitously show him standing on his head or punching him or anything like that. He went the other way. Yeah. And I remember he had this big battle with the BBF, but not a big battle, but they had this, how do we cut it? Like they've got all these mad rules, like if someone's unconscious, you can't show someone else standing on the head in a film. It's weird in a way because, like, in a sense, you think, oh, you've seen well worse things, but the violence is very carefully crafted. And what I will say as well, the physical effects in it, specifically that shanking scene, it's really weird, isn't it? Because it happens and you can see obviously the blood pouring from his chest and stuff, but then he starts taking everything off and
you see the wounds. Oof.
Yeah, but they're like, it's weird, isn't it? But they're just like little puncture marks. They're not like big slashes or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's just all oozing out. But that prosthetic, which he's obviously got on his chest, again, maybe because I've watched that other version over the weekend, like it holds up really well. I was thinking, I wonder how the prosthetic is for that and stuff. But even on that new version, it doesn't look. You can't see, something that you might not have been able to on the DVD version and that. But yeah, it's pretty brutal, isn't it?
I think, and it's realistic tone because it is based on true events. That makes it even worse. It's not like Total Recall where it's set in the future. And I mean, I think Total Recalls are by far, it's one of the most violent films I've seen, but it always goes under the radar just because it's science fiction. Same with, I think Verhoeven's a very violent filmmaker. Like, look at Starship Troopers, that is incredibly violent. It doesn't pull any punches there, but because RoboCop, yeah, exactly. You wouldn't get away with that nowadays. Oh. But with something based in reality like Chopper, it packs a punch. And I'm going back to the shanking scene with Chopper. Like, you don't actually see the knife going into him, just like with the girlfriend beating scene. You don't see it. It's just a movement that sells it and a sound effect. But because of that, it's got more of an impact.
Yeah, and you feel it again, don't you? It's like it's the blood. Like, it's a really subtle the and the sound effects. It's not like it's not like watching a kung fu film or something like that.
Exactly.
But again, it probably comes down to the performances as well. And one thing that we have to talk about is just how good Eric Bana is in this, because he's gone on to have some massive roles in Hollywood and the Hulk and all that other stuff, but he's never been this good in anything since. Like, this was like a role that he was born to play.
Yeah, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly, mate. I mean, you think of Eric Bana, and the first performance you think of is Chopper. It's synonymous with him because like you say, it's the role he was born to play, and I do like Eric Bana. I think he's a top actor. I particularly like him in the Adam Sandler film Funny People, where he just plays an absolute douchebag. But yeah, it's Chopper. It's iconic. It really, and it's maybe not so much for us because we're in the UK, but in Australia, everybody knows Chopper. He was a celebrity. I believe he's passed away now. But to tackle an Australian, do I say icon for a criminal? I'll use icon for the sake of this. To tackle that and just to
persona probably is the or character.
But yeah, well, to tackle a legendary Australian character, and for everyone to universally go, he's amazing in it. That's some feat. And for someone who I quite like the fact that he was a comedian before this, because you alluded to it before. There's a lot of comedy in the role, and it swings very fast between comedy and sheer violence. And who better to understand that than a comedian? Because the old saying goes, it's a fine line between horror and comedy.
Yeah. I mean, that first line when he gets shanked, and it's some quip about why you're trying to hit me with kung fu or something like that.
It's a bit early for kung fu in it, Jim.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and like there's another one when he first gets to Neville's house, and there was loads of little things that I just picked up on, and obviously that's the two sort of cronies that Neville's got, who kind of like the two parasites that follow him around. They're like, if you watch when he comes up the stairs, they're right behind him, like ants, like, and he says something like, "Can you two fucking stop crawling up my arse and get out of here?" And like he just dead lightly, like Chopper or Eric Bana just bats him. "Oh, so that's why you're walking funny." But I don't know if he was. I don't know if if it was in the script, because he turns around and looks at him and he says, "You're what?" Like that, and Bana just like shakes his head, and they carry on progressing over, to where the two dogs are. I mean, that's horrible, isn't it? Just even in that, what he does, and puts the cocaine into the dog's bowls, and like there's just little things in it like that, little details which you just think, that could deserve to be fucking died, didn't he, and get shot, and that's probably the complexity of the character with Chopper as well. Like, as far as I'm aware, he didn't go up to the man on the street, who was, obviously had like a mobile phone and a bit of money on him or something like that, and like rob him. Like, I think all the people that he actually murdered were career criminals. And like, if you're a career criminal, if you're lucky enough to survive, then you've probably had a lot of horrible shit done to you. But I don't think you can complain. Well, it's a weird way to say it, but if you're a criminal and you're a major one selling heroin in like, a residential area like Neville was, then sounds I've not really got any problem with someone like shooting them in the leg or the gut or what have you.
And I think that's why the Australian public like so enamored with him, just because he was a mindless criminal, but he like you said, he'd never do that to a civilian. It'd always be to someone who's in the game kind of
the
thing.
Criminal underworld, basically.
Yeah, I mean, our version of that is the devil. He'd go out and rob drug dealers, and that's it. I forget his real name, but his nickname was, he called himself the devil, didn't he?
I don't know.
Oh, what's his name? Stephen French?
Oh, fucking hell. Yeah. But let's not go down that road.
But he's like a fun Australian version of him, isn't he? Where like he is. I mean, a Chopper was. He was a psychopath. He was, but he has a charm to him, a likability, like an everyday man. He's essentially an Australian anti-hero.
Yeah, he is actually. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what he is. And you know, Andrew Dominic, we did this interview for this other podcast with these two Scottish lads, and he basically says in it like, we need a few of them at the moment in the world. We need a few more choppers. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe it says more about, you know, the world we live in now. And one thing they did say to him was, do you think Chopper could be made now? And I thought, it's kind of a good question, but like, films like that, I think will always get made. Like, it doesn't matter. I know things have moved on and people talk about being woke and, you know, he's a misogynist, he's a murderer, he's criminal, um, he's druggy, you know, he's probably a drunk given the amount of time that, you know, he spends boozing in the film and stuff. So, you know, he wasn't someone that you'd necessarily want to share a beer with on a Friday night after work, but, you know, yeah, he was very much this kind of working class anti-hero, wasn't he, sort of thing, almost like, I'm not going to say like The Crow or anything like that, but it's a really strange and unique film in the sense that it puts you in a place where you kind of are semi-rooting for him. And the other thing with the film is there's actually no plot.
I made a note about this because like I said before, I've not seen it in years, and yeah, it's just a series of events leading up to his conviction. It's not a typical biopic, and I think that's what helps it stand out as well. It's not. It doesn't. This is the life of Brandon Chopper Reed. It's the. No, this is Chopper Reed at this specific moment in time, and this is all you really need to know about him. And I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously over here we didn't know anything, did we? And you know, this was made for an audience. You know, people who knew him in Australia. So that obviously he doesn't have to go in, and you don't have to be so on the nose as, you know, he was born, you know, wherever, Perth, Adelaide. He was born on this. You know, it's not like a factual biopic like, you know, something like JFK is.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, and it's almost like these vignettes of him. But like within there, like there's still enough room for you to get a read on it and stuff. Of, you know, obviously he hates women to some degree, and there's that scene when he gets released from prison, and his dad's been waiting for him all day, and like you can just tell straight away there's like kind of like a weird friction or a weird sort of relationship. And he says that thing, oh, I wrote a letter to mum, and his dad just bursts out laughing, and he just kind of gives him this look, and like it's that thing of, well, something's clearly happened growing up. His parents are divorced, you know, and given his relationship with women, who you wonder if maybe she was a drunk, or, you know, whether there was an abusive relationship there or whatever. But it kind of, there is little things in there like that which you can kind of extrapolate more information from, or that can help you along with the ride, but you don't need to. It's almost like these really violent and funny vignettes, and from that, you like, what you actually get is a portrait of him. And when you watch the special features on the DVD and you hear him talk, and you hear his cadence, you hear, you know, the types of stories he tells, his sense of humour, that's all there on the big screen. Like, that is all captured. And that's again, that's the strength of the film, I think.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's distinctly non-Hollywood. It doesn't glorify anything. It doesn't portray him to be some sort of hero. I don't know any Australian people, but from what I've seen, it's quite Australian, where it's not like they're not up their own asses. They're just very, this is what happens. Matter of fact, it's happened. Get over it. Whereas in Hollywood, it's, you know, you'll have like an American flag in the background and he'll be standing over it and it'll be a Michael Bay 360 spin shot and showing how great he is. It's just, it is what it is. It's a matter of fact. There's no polish to it.
But if you take the accents out of that film, right, there's nothing in there to tell you that that's set in Australia. No. Maybe the beers, maybe the bottles of beer, but there's not like, you don't see the Sydney Opera House at any point.
Yeah.
You don't see loads of Aborigines running around, and that's the setups for them scenes that are in it, like, they're just, maybe there's just no sort of references to like on the nose being in Australia sort of thing, and I think that helps. But I've never been to Australia myself, so. But the thing that you'd expect is, that sort of Neighbours-esque, home and away, beach bums and all that malarkey, and it's not. It's like it almost shows you a grittier, realer sort of, poverty. Not loads of poverty, but like a very working class sort of scenes and that. But yeah, that's, again, I think I completely agree with you on that being its one of its strengths.
Yeah, it's and when I was doing research for it, like, I knew it was a big film for us. I didn't realise just how big it was and how many people do genuinely love this film. I mean, I put a picture out on my Instagram saying I'm currently watching Chopper, and usually, because I've got no social media presence whatsoever, really, it just gets ignored, no likes, no comments or anything like that. But when I put up like watching Chopper, like a lot more people started liking, going, oh, love this film, great film, that. I was like, oh wow, like people really remember and love this film. And as I was doing research, like, this kettled my head. Like, Chopper was the highest grossing R-rated film in Australian history, all the way up until 2013 when The Wolf of Wall Street came out.
Fucking hell.
Like 13 years on top. And it was toppled by seeing Margot Robbie naked, an Australian native.
Not a bad thing to be toppled by, yeah. Naked Margot Robbie, really. But
if anything can knock Chopper off the top spot, it's naked Margot Robbie.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I'm not surprised. And, when you think of like the heritage of Australian cinema and stuff, so you've got your Mad Maxes in there. You've got stuff like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head and I can't. Road Games. I don't know if you've ever seen Road Games.
No.
That's a pretty cool film. But when you're looking at all those sort of, it fits into sort of a sensible sort of, they're not genre films, but like, they are genre films sort of thing. I can see why it's been so successful given the country's history of the type of cinema it's produced, basically.
Well, another thing that's that I don't know why I thought this, but whenever I used to think of Australian cinema, I just used to think of a few good films, but they've produced a lot of great stuff. Like you said, Mad Max. You've got one of my favourites, Razorback from the 80s, Lantana, Rover, Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, Rover's good, isn't it?
Yeah, Rover.
Rover or The Rover? Can never remember.
I think it might be The Rover.
Guy Pearce, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much like, one of the things I will say is it's like, there's always like some type of, obviously you've got Mad Max, he's rocking around in like a car, isn't he? And it's happening on the road, on the move and all that. And like the Rover riffs on that loads, like that could be set in the same world as Mad Max.
I like to think of it as, Yeah, I always like to think of it as like a Mad Max prequel of some sorts because it seems like it's not quite to the level of madness of Mad Max, but it just seems like the start of that world and how it all crumbles down.
Yeah, no, what I mean. That's spot on. Guy Pearce and Robert Pattinson as well, who
Yeah,
obviously both, you know, top of the game. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I forgot Guy Pearce. He's brilliant actor, isn't he? Do you know what I mean?
oh, it was fantastic.
Was he in like Australian? Was he in Australian TV first? Was he or?
He either started in Neighbours or Home and Away.
Oh fuck! I suppose one of them had to have somebody had to have a good career who'd been in one of those fucking Aussie sort of shows and that.
It's one of them. It's like it's weird. It's like in the UK we've got Corrie, Emmerdale, and EastEnders, but hardly anyone makes the jump to features from there. It's kind of like, oh, you're a soap actor. But in Australia, it's a fantastic platform. I think most of the big, I mean, I know Russell Crowe was in one of them at one point. But yeah, I mean, it's and going back to Australian cinema, it's like they've produced loads, like the Babadook, Wolf Creek, The Proposition, Romper Stomper, like we said before, and it's a proper powerhouse of creatives and a lot of new directors coming through via Australian cinema. It's fantastic.
I mean, like saying that, I couldn't name you too many Australian directors, and to be fair, everything that Andrew Dominic's ever made, I thought was fucking brilliant. Um, I mean, he's gone from making Chopper to directing the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, and it's just like an epic masterpiece.
I mean, everything he's gone on to do since Chopper is, I mean, the assassination of Jesse James is amazing. Killing Them Softly. It's just you. If you go back and watch all of his films, it's like he is an auteur that you can kind of see an Andrew Dominic film. He's got his stamp on everything, even if it's just really good cinematography. It's like, oh, that reminds me of Chopper. That reminds me of Killing Them Softly. He's top game, and I love the way he takes his time. I mean, you mentioned it before. It seems like he's completely burnt out, and he just has to take his time to get the new project going. And he's even done a couple of episodes of Mindhunter.
Yeah, yeah.
It's.
I mean, that's like it's the work that he's done. Like, it's that thing. Sometimes you want a filmmaker to be churning stuff out because of the quality that's gone before it, but there's that trade-off of, well, if you want quality, I've got to do my diligence, take my time, make sure this is right. Because if you look at all the projects that he's been attached to, there's been a fair few, and for whatever reason, he gets out of bed with, whoever it be, Paramount or one of the other studios, for whatever reason, and he probably is. I mean, he's having massive problems at the minute. He's made a Marilyn Monroe biopic with Netflix.
Oh, where with Ana de Armas, isn't it?
Yeah. But he's having all kinds of post-production struggles with them, probably from, whether it's the duration of it or, editorial elements. Who knows? But he is that type of. I mean, Brad Pitt basically vouched for him after seeing Chopper, and he was like, "Fucking hell, I want to work with this guy." So like it's not been like this incremental creep for him to get to where he's been. He's gone and made Chopper, and then the next project that he's worked on with Brad Pitt, Casey Affleck, all those actors that are in that. I mean, like Roger Deakins. It's arguably like Roger Deakins' most beautiful film.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing with that of, it's a film about, you know, a gang who were doing heists or infamous for doing heists and robberies. But I think the only heist in the film is the one at the beginning on the train.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's all like these like beautiful Western panoramas and stuff. And the interesting thing about that is like Deakins took all these old film lenses, and it was that era when there was like new digital cameras and stuff. And like he'd made or had made all these sort of fittings so he could fit the old lenses on the new cameras and stuff. But you can see it in some of the shots, like around the edge, you can see like banding in the frame and stuff. But I don't know, I just think it works for the film. And you know, it's like something like Apocalypse Now. You can't just throw it on in the background. If you're going to watch it, switch your phone off, you know, get a couple of beers in or something, and then you sit there and you enjoy it for what it is. It's not one that you can, well, I certainly couldn't have just got to have the single-mindedness to jump on and sit through it and stay with it. And it's really difficult, isn't it? Because we're all used to being on our phones and WhatsApping people and checking Instagram or whatever it is. But there's real satisfaction in sitting there and immersing yourself in it. And there's not many filmmakers around like that anymore. And Dominic is, for me, right up there.
Yeah, I think with all of his films, they kind of command your attention, and it's not really, and it's a command that you'll gladly follow just because of how beautiful his films are and how interesting and how different he's not. Like I say, he really is an auteur because he's got just a completely different way of telling a story. It's he is the he's the dog's bollocks, really. He's the mutt's nuts.
He's fucking shit hot, isn't he? And see, that's going back to what I said earlier. He's not out there doing loads of interviews. He's not, you know, there's not loads of photography out there with him with Brad Pitt, like standing next to his mate, you know, all these premieres and stuff. He's very low key and like, he's not asked about the celebrity element of it all and that. And to me, that's boss, because in a world which is saturated by social media and clips of films and, you know, trailers have pre-trailers now and all that, it just seems like very old school. And his only job is to produce the best film he can. He's not asked about all the fucking circus around it all and all, you know, casting so he can sit on a boat with him or something like that. Yeah, he's just fucking single-minded. This is my craft. This is my art. And I'm immersing myself in it to create the best film I can basically.
Yeah, I've got a lot of time for that because, like you said, with social media, you can get really sick of filmmakers, and it can muddy their films, like with whatever, either too much exposure from them, or if they start getting on the soapbox about political agendas and whatnot, you're just like, oh, just shut the fuck up and do your job, kind of thing. And I know everyone's got a right to have to say, but it is refreshing to not hear from a creative and just have their work to do all the talking for them, because that's all they want. That's what's important. It's not about them personally or oversharing their lives. It's just great to see. I couldn't really tell you the first thing about Andrew Dominic. I've never once messaged you and gone, oh, have you seen what he said in this? Have you seen this quote? It's like he runs silent. He's very stealthy like that, and it's like you say, it is old fashioned, and I'd like a lot of filmmakers to do more of that.
Yeah, there's just so many people that want so much things off for whatever reason. All these like media outlets and all, you know, people who've got YouTube channels and stuff, and when they're, you know, out there, like as they say now, selling the film, PRing it, so, you know, every little market is saturated. It can just be like, fucking hell, I've seen Jake Gyllenhaal talk about Ambulance, I don't know how many times on different platforms this week. I think Jake
Ambulance.
Gyllenhaal. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is a great actor. Like, I love some of the films he's been in, but I couldn't give a fuck about that film. But it's everywhere, and that's how they have to play the game now because of the way the whole fucking world is.
Nah.
How many people can we get in to watch it to make the money? Gotta say though, like the cast looks great, and like, you know, Michael Bay does what Michael Bay does, but even that cast isn't enough for me to go and spend between 6 and 10 quid to go and watch it. Fuck that.
Yeah, no, it's I'm the same, mate. I know more about that film than I really should at this point, and I've not even seen it.
Well, like, you know, the Mexican chick who's in it, she is Isa Gonzalez. She is absolutely stunning. I'll be honest, that's probably the only reason why I'd go and see that film. I'd watch it on mute, just to watch it on the big screen, basically. But no, I mean, Chopper is like, it's something which I'd happily probably put in my top 5 films. I'd go as far to say that after watching it. Yeah.
I mean, it's. I think it. I'm glad it is getting a HD release because it definitely deserves a brand new audience. Because especially nowadays, where everything's an IP, everything's big budget, everything's got to be crash bang wallop. What a blockbuster. Whereas it harkens back to a simpler time of cinema, a more creative time in cinema where you could just enjoy someone's brand new vision. And I gotta say, I don't remember the runtime of it when I first watched it, but it's just over an hour and a half. It's such an easy watch.
Yeah.
And
what I will say is on the runtime, and it kind of, I'm sure I read in a press release somewhere that there was new footage, 13 minutes worth of new footage in the film. Maybe that was just in the theatrical cuts that went out to people who were lucky enough to have a fucking screening of it. But I didn't notice in the digital version I bought from Amazon, which it says 20th anniversary edition on it. Nothing stood out, but I haven't watched it for that long that you'd necessarily notice. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe maybe it is in there, but I was just that engrossed that it was seamless, the footage that had gone back into it for whatever reason.
Yeah, or it's like when you hear like additional footage, you kind of automatically think a new scene, but it's probably just seconds splattered about everywhere. So it just, you just, nothing would really jump out at you like an extended of I don't know, for example, Georgie getting stabbed at the beginning or something like that, or an extra bit of dialogue.
Well, that's it. I mean, the thing with films like that is that are notorious for being violent. You know, you think that they're going to put more gore into it, or something more graphic, and I certainly couldn't pick up on anything. Like, it felt like the same scenes in that sense, and I always think it's shit to do that. Like, as much as Apocalypse Now is probably my favorite film ever, and there's so many cuts of that doing the rounds now, and I've watched them all, but it can get to the point where you're like, wow, this is like, you've changed it so much from what it originally was. It's really difficult to kind of tell, is this version my favourite, or do I enjoy this more? And sometimes it's fun, like the whole Blade Runner thing, all those cuts of Blade Runner. That's fun because it's not seconds and it's not minutes. It's like entire sections of the film with narration or what have you. But maybe Dominic just wanted to like fine tune little bits here and there, which he, for whatever reason, had to be cut in the original version. But it certainly didn't feel like a radical overhaul, like Apocalypse Now Redux or something like that. But I think that whole gamut as well of cinema now, on the whole, the Batman it's just too fucking long. I mean, it's just even the Marvel, like some of the Marvel stuff, even the better stuff that's been done, it's just too long. And like being able to tell a nice, concise story over 90 minutes in the same way, you know, certain special effects, certain physical effects is moved out of filmmaking. Almost the craft of making a film over 90 minutes. That's going on.
Yeah,
but Chopper's really good at it.
Yeah, it does. It is old school in that way, and like run times really boil my piss lately because like, I completely agree. If you can't make a film in an hour and a half, then there's something missing there. There's no. You need to be restrained in some way. But and with the Batman, I really did enjoy it. I liked it, but it could have done with losing half an hour. It was that the runtime for that was absolutely obscene.
Didn't you feel like the whole final sort of showdown was just crowbarred in?
Yes, yeah, 100%.
We need an action. It's like the studio have gone, all right, yeah, we'll let you do that. Yeah, that's cool. All right, yeah, okay. The detective elements and what have you. It's a slow burning arc, which I was fine with because we've never had that in a Batman film before. But it feels like then they've watched like the cut up to a certain point, and then they've gone, could we not have a massive set piece where Gotham floods? But the whole issue with the film for me, and I don't want to go too much off on it here, is there's nothing at stake. Do you know what I mean? Because it's about him learning a history, but there's nothing at stake at any point in the film other than him learning that history or not learning it.
Well, I completely agree with the ending being tacked on by the studio for wanting a Hollywood showpiece. But like you said, it's a more personal film than that. It doesn't warrant a big set piece. The reward was him learning the truth about his family to be a better Batman, really, and to realize there is hypocrisy and he needs to sort it out. But with that ending, it's just like it doesn't fit the film whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's this weird thing. I mean, I worked in a cinema for just over 2 years, and my understanding of films is the shorter they are, the more screenings you can have of them in one day, and that means more money. And I don't understand why that's not a thing anymore. If you're spending, if a cinema's open for 8 hours a day, you can only show the Batman twice in one day.
It's a really good point.
And I don't understand why films are so long these days. I mean, the only film that I can warrant being 3 hours plus long is The Lord of the Rings, because that's a massive epic story. It's kind of in it's within its job description to be that long. But for something like the Batman or a Marvel film, like you said, it's short is better. No, and particularly with Marvel films that are family friendly. Imagine having kids and taking them and having to make your kids sit down for 3 hours. Neon impossible.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen for 2-hour films. When we go to our local one, you know, that is a community cinema. Like, you've got all kinds of shit going off to the point where, you know, it can be confrontational sometimes when you want to watch a film and enjoy it, and other people want to play a song on the phone or, you know, fuck about. But, you know, I think, again, it's going off topic here, even off Batman and certainly off Chopper, but the whole cinema thing, for me personally, is because we've sat in our living rooms and our bedrooms during lockdown, and all our habits are kind of just being dumped. Like, because we're used to being on our phones while we're watching a film, and so the hangover from that is now carried into cinemas. So people's like, I don't want the morals or the ethics around it. Like, no one's asked about anyone else.
Yeah.
They just want to know what score Everton are getting beat while they're watching, Batman fill someone in. And like that it's that simple. But that's a good point. Like, if you've got films with run times around 90 minutes, you can put more films on, you can put more varied films. And for me personally, like, it's really rare that even in independent cinemas that you'll get a really diverse schedule of films. And like, that's kind of what you want in it, because like you can pull in horror fans, then you can pull in, science fiction fans. You can have all these little audiences, that obviously have their own sort of followings. You get more footfall in a cinema. It just seems really logical and straightforward, but it's probably far more complex than that.
I agree, mate. And I think another thing that confuses me of the long run times versus short run times is the society we live in now. It feeds off quick information, Twitter, TikTok with 15-second videos. That's humanity's attention span is shrinking by the year. There's no patience, no build up. So to have a long film is to kind of go against what society's used to now. It's a massive contradiction for me. I can't fathom to even begin to understand why it is, how it is, who it is. It's
weird as well, because if you think about it in terms of this, the cost of, say, a Marvel epic, not talking about like the really shit ones, but like I don't know what was the last one that was in the cinema. The biggest
Eternals, was it?
Eternals. So that's obviously cost a right few quid, but given that there's such a big audience base for it, for the same amount of money, make 2 films, and you'll be getting double the revenue. But for some reason, they've seen it as, no, give them it all in one hit. But it just doesn't tie in to the way people consume things. I don't think it's the territory of the streamers, your Netflixes and your Disney Pluses, and they're happy to have longer form content on there. I mean, I'm fine with Scorsese having The Irishman. That's fine. Like, he's earned that. He deserves that. But I'm not going to sit there and watch Eternals, which I don't know. It's definitely over 2 hours. It's probably at least 2.5 hours. But yeah, it's just weird. Like, I don't know what the remit is or the logic, other than keeping people in the platform. But I don't see any point in that, other than that's just a tick box for some like monthly or bi-monthly figures. Oh, Gary from Shropshire, he's watched Captain Marvel, all of them back to back, and he's been in the Disney platform for longer than anyone. Great. Maybe he's just fallen asleep though.
Exactly. Maybe
being left on.
Maybe he's doing the dishes or cooking the tea with it on in the background. It doesn't mean anything. And I think there's kind of like that misinformation leading into, oh well, it'll do well on the streaming platform, so yeah, we'll have it at 3+ hours long. But you kind of get the impression they're going, cinema's on the way out, so we don't really care. What really matters is the streaming service.
And the mad thing about that is as well, and again, going off on tangent here, if a community cinema like ours, Plaza and Crosby, if they show a Marvel film and you buy an adult ticket, like they only make 20 pence on the ticket. All the rest of the money goes to Disney.
Yeah.
So like, if they don't show them films to get that 20 pence, then they can't make any money, because everybody wants to see them films. So they couldn't they couldn't show Chopper. They'd have to show the Batman, or they'd have to show Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Because like it doesn't make any financial sense. So they have to kind of play ball with the beast that is, you know, the giant studios in order to even exist. But then, you know, from time to time, they might have something on, like The Lighthouse, or they had the Godfather anniversary on as well.
Yeah, and The Green Knight.
Yeah, The Green Knight. I mean, that was brilliant that they put that on. That was made up.
Yeah.
But, you know, it comes back to that thing of, like, just make good films. Don't worry about the runtime. Don't say you want it for this. Just make the best, most concise story in the most effective way possible. And that's what's so fucking good about Chopper.
Exactly, mate. It's an artistic format. But lately it's more of it's been turned into an algorithm format, like you said, checking boxes. And yeah, and I think this is what's so good about it being re-released on HD. It gives a brand new audience, and it can inspire people and go, oh shit, this is cinema, not Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's just that. I wholeheartedly agree with what Martin Scorsese said. I like most of the Marvel films, but they are theme park rides. If you want real cinema, you gotta go back a bit and dig out some rare gems. And I think for a lot of people, Chopper will be the rarest of gems.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of them films. I've got this weird habit where, like, I've never seen Doctor Strangelove, but I know I'm going to love Doctor Strangelove.
You would, yeah.
So I am saving that. In the same way people save a bottle of wine for a certain day, I'm saving that film for a certain day.
Well, I'm exactly the same, mate. In the Kubrick territory, I've never seen 2001.
Really?
Never seen it. It's one of my great shames. So, but I am saving that for a very special occasion, like you said, like a great bottle of wine.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'd say to people who haven't seen Chopper. Like, it's only an hour and a half, so you're not going to have to, like, you know, make sure the kids are at the grandparents or, you know, what have you. But pick a day when you can watch it properly with a couple of beers, because it's funny as fuck, and it's also ultra violent, which if that's your thing, great, but it's not in a mad sort of slasher 80s sort of, you know, scatty horror film. It's like really effective filmmaking. But yeah, in that sense, I couldn't like rate it any higher.
Yeah, it's if any to take away anything from this conversation, it'd be go watch fucking Chopper. You know, but even if you buy it on DVD for a couple of quid, it's worth it.
I think that DVD as well, it's got a couple of behind the scenes bits of making of, and most importantly, an Andrew Dominic commentary, which
I was about to say, yeah, I've never listened to it either. I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I'll put that on, but then it was like 11 o'clock. I've got to get to bed. I never got around to it.
My issue with it was the reason why I've not watched it. My disc in me current DVD player, it plays, and then when a scene changes, it skips or pauses. So it just becomes dead frustrating watching it because it does it at different points. But unfortunately, that digital copy you got, there's no you can't change the audio commentary track or anything. I'll take that on the chin and try and find a copy of it somewhere where the audio is the director's commentary track.
Yeah, it's something that I'll have to do just to reinforce my love for the film and my appreciation for it, because I'm sure whatever Andrew Dominic's got to say on it is valuable listening.
Absolutely.
So, mate, I think we've waxed lyrical as much as we are physically able to wax lyrical about Chopper. So we'll leave it there. But just a quick question before you go.
Mm-hmm.
What are your top 3 Australian films?
Chopper's number 1 by a country mile. Probably then Road Games, which had a really, really cool Indicator special edition release, which I didn't get round to getting. And it's like 50 or 60 quid now on eBay. Which I reckon you'd be into it. I reckon you'd be into it.
I need to, and because I've never even heard of it, so I need to look it up at least.
I'm not. It's that thing when Indicator release anything now, like that's how I first found out about the last movie, like Dennis Hopper's film, which plunged him into like Hollywood obscurity. They released that a couple of years back. So when they have anything now, I always do a little bit of research into it and go, yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm just going to say Mad Max because like, you know, it was at the time fucking seminal. It still kind of is. And I read like, or I watched an interview with Tarantino earlier, and he was saying that he couldn't watch Fury Road at first because he's like, why the fuck would you make that film and not cast Mel Gibson, even though Mel Gibson's still alive? And to be fair to him, he could have played that role, couldn't he?
Well, yeah. Like
really simply and straightforward. And he said something dead interesting at the end. He said, you know, the feral kid that's in, I don't know if it's the second or third one, but there's one point, it might be the first actually. So I've not watched them films for so long, they've all just...
So I have very little can't even say it. My memory's poor with Mad Max 1 and Mad Max...
Fury Road. Not Fury Road.
Road Warrior.
Road Warrior, yeah.
But I of course remember Fury Road because it's fucking incredible. And unfortunately, I remember pretty much everything about Beyond the Thunderdome.
That's because you fancied Tina Turner when you were growing up, though, lads.
Still do now.
Oh, bloody hell. Boss. But yeah, Tarantino, but there's a feral kid in one of them, which, like, I don't know if he becomes like his companion. I can't remember. But Tarantino said it would have been cooler that Tom Hardy's character was in fact the feral kid grown up. Because the kid doesn't really talk in it. He utters stuff and communicates in different ways, if I remember correctly. And that's kind of what Hardy does. He's very guttural, isn't he? And there's not much talk from him and stuff. I don't know, maybe that is...
Well, maybe
his name is Max, doesn't he?
Well, maybe that is the case, and he's just taken on the persona of Max Rochanski.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of cool, actually, when you think about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, the way Tarantino says it, he just says it's something for your audience to think about, and then the kind of interview ends. But
he's kind of thrown a grenade in the room there and just walked away, hasn't he? That's I like that.
Absolutely.
Oh, but yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, yeah, top picks there, Matt. Although I've not seen what's it called again?
Road Games.
I'll look into that because I'm intrigued. I think I'm going to go on to a bit of an Australian cinema binge now because I mean I need to repurchase Lantana, watch the Babadook again, and of course my favourite Australian film, The Proposition.
You know what? Completely forgot about that.
There's so much of Australian cinema that you just it goes into the ether until like you hear a name again.
Well, we'll do something on The Proposition because I think it's got a 4K BFI release next month.
It has. I've pre-ordered it. Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be worth watching.
Yeah, plenty to dig.
Ray Winston,
Guy Pearce again.
Guy Pearce.
It's not Samantha Morton. She was in Equilibrium. What's her name?
She was. Shut the big eyes.
Yeah. Oh, it's gone. But and Danny Houston as well.
Danny Houston.
Who's incredible in it.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant. And I really enjoyed it. It's got, what's his name as well? The old British actor. He's passed away now.
William Hurt. No, not William Hurt. John Hurt.
John Hurt.
A very racist John Hurt.
Very racist John. There's a lot of racism in that film as well. But it is, it's brutal. It is brutal at times. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that again, especially in 4K.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. Yeah.
I really hope that's a screen of that up north somewhere and we don't have to try and convince you to go to London, which always ends up people going, no. Why would I pay £90 on a return train to come and watch a film when I could buy 10 copies of the film for the same amount?
I know. One day, you know, I appreciate you're always asking because one day I'll say yes. But hopefully, like you say, hopefully it gets a screening up here. Maybe The Fact or The Everyman or something.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Right then. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. I really enjoyed that conversation. It was class, that.
Yeah, I'll send you me invoice over.
I look forward to it. Add that VAT onto it. Right, mate. I will catch you in a bit.
Ta-ra, lad.
Adios.